In this episode of The Proud Family tries to act progressive only to fall flat on its face by not having a grasp of any of the issues it preaches about, let's talk about how the Proud Family misrepresents Native American identity. Native Americans are a diverse group of people, each with their own flags, symbols, tribal governments, and in some cases their own delegates in Congress, even though some are non-voting. I shouldn't say some, they're non-voting delegates. Native American tribes and territories are essentially nations within a nation. As such, there's a lot of nuances I'm going to gloss over, because the more you look into the laws and reasons why the laws exist, the more you come off as a conspiracy theorist. Okay, so what did this moronic episode say? Well, it said this about Michael. Since he wanted to celebrate his Powhatan heritage, he dressed like the fabulous Pocahontas. That's not how Native Americans work. Go back to the idea of a nation within a nation. One of the things a nation decides is citizenship. In the United States, we generally determine citizenship by right of soil. If you were born on American soil, you are an American citizen. You are not naturalized. If your parents were non-citizens and you were born here, you are a citizen, assuming your parents weren't diplomats or staffers to diplomats. You can thank Wong Kim Ark v. USA for that. However, in 1924, the U.S. decided to give Native Americans U.S. citizenship. Up until then, they were their own thing, sort of. Native American tribes had their own criteria for citizenship. Through external pressures, Native Americans eventually adopted laws such as the blood quantum laws, which are highly controversial, that said a certain amount of blood is a requirement for tribal enrollment, which is basically just citizenship in that tribe. You will find that there are a lot more Native Americans in these tribes with European blood than you expect. You will also find many white Americans with native blood. But since this is a conversation about the Proud family, this has to get worse. You've probably heard of the trope called the Indian princess or the native princess. It was basically an attempt by Europeans to superimpose a European royalty worldview onto Native American people. After all, native peoples might be seen as savages, but royal blood is royal blood anywhere. Now, this raises the question, why no Indian princes? Like I said, natives were seen as savages, in particular, native men. They weren't given the same sentiment as native women. Men were warriors, a savage enemy to crush. But a woman, however, was not a savage enemy to subdue in the minds of the European settlers. Someone they could civilize would be a woman. Now, I could go on about the implications of this and why Europeans decided to claim ancestry from a native princess despite being violently xenophobic against people like them or other Europeans like the Irish, the Slavs, and even the Asians like the Chinese. Maybe it's some kind of weird nationalism that grew out of the French Revolution and the springtime of nations that helped try to carve a native identity. Maybe it's something to do with the frontier thesis and some weird idea about needing to be attached to the frontier in order to conquer it. Maybe this is a Roman Empire-like scenario where they need to claim Roman identity in order to be acknowledged as an empire, such as the Holy Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, which was the Roman Empire, the Russian Empire, or the Ottoman Empire. Maybe it's that idea that American nationalists need to be considered the successors of the Native Americans. I don't know. I'm not a scholar of American nationalism. What I do know is that people try to claim 1/16th Cherokee in order to explain how they can just use this connection to swindle others by acting like a shaman and selling their supposed expertise to writers over actual indigenous voices. There's also how this view of Native American by blood seeks to reduce Native American identity to simple bloodlines rather than knowledge or participation in the culture. It treats it like these cultures were part of the past and belong in the past and are dead in the past, when in reality they're still very much alive, even though they've changed since the past because cultures are dynamic that way. Instead of trying to forge academic credentials or sell us anything, this episode is trying to justify why Michael is dressing like Pocahontas by using the he's part Powhatan nonsense. Which is funny because this scene was part of an episode which, in theory, was supposed to go against the concept of ethnic fetishization and racism, but it just ended up coming off as demonizing mixed race couples as if this was pre Loving v. Virginia. Wonderful job, writers. Bottom line, don't watch The Proud Family. You're better off trying to Google sources on indigenous identity because clearly whoever wrote this script didn't even bother to glance at Wikipedia when writing it. Well, that's all for this episode. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. This is Cyril signing off.